All right, buckle up for this one. It's a wild one. The Lomita Black Widow. Just the name, right?
Yeah, sends chills down your spine. You know there's going to be a story there. And this one is a doozy.
We're looking at a true crime blog post from Investor, and it's got everything. Alleged murder, maybe even double murder, and a whole lot of money involved, too. It's a story about love and betrayal, even international intrigue.
All right, lay it on me. Where do we start with this one?
Okay, so picture this. Larry Risken, decorated Navy commander, special ed teacher, by all accounts just a good guy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't expect him to get caught up in something like this.
Right, it's always the ones you least expect. Makes you realize it can happen to anyone, anywhere.
Exactly. So Larry meets this woman, Sonia Rios, charismatic, maybe a little mysterious. They fall head over heels and get married super fast, but almost right away, there are some red flags.
Like what? What should people be looking out for?
Well, the blog describes Sonia as controlling. Seemed to isolate Larry from his family and friends. And there was this whole thing with the adoption of her niece and nephew, Quincy and Jetmar. Larry wanted to bring them to the U.S., but Sonia kept delaying it. Larry's sister Sherry was worried about Sonia from the very beginning, had a bad feeling about her.
You know, that's so important. We often ignore those gut feelings or brush off what our loved ones are telling us, but sometimes they see things more clearly.
Yeah, like they're on the outside looking in.
Right, exactly. And those warnings shouldn't be ignored.
Well, unfortunately, Larry didn't listen. In April 2006, he goes to the Philippines to see Quincy and Jetmar, even though his sister begged him not to go. And that's when it all went wrong.
I bet. What happened?
He was shot twice, once in the head, once in the stomach. Found slumped over in his car outside a hospital. Investigators think it was a hit, like someone was paid to kill him.
Wow, that's scary. Like a professional hit. That's serious, premeditated.
Yeah. And the thing is, Sonia's behavior after he died was really strange. I mean, you just lost your husband. But she wasn't grieving. She was focused on something else.
What was she focused on?
The money. Remember the life insurance policies?
Oh, right.
Turns out Larry had multiple policies, and guess who the sole beneficiary was on all of them?
Sonia.
Sonia. Whirlwind romance, controlling behavior, suspicious death overseas, and a giant life insurance payout. Starting to see why they call her the Black Widow.
Yeah, the pieces are starting to fit together. But here's the thing. This wasn't the first time one of Sonia's husbands died under mysterious circumstances.
Wait, what?
There's more. Tell me about Earl Bordeaux.
Okay, this is where it gets even crazier. Earl was Sonia's first husband, a Marine. They were married for 21 years, and people said Sonia was controlling in that relationship too. And get this, she pressured Earl into taking a trip to the Philippines, alone.
Hold on. Are you saying both of Sonia's husbands ended up dead in the Philippines after she insisted they go there alone? That's a little too coincidental, don't you think?
Exactly. So back in 1987, Earl is sleeping in a house owned by, you guessed it, Sonia's relatives, and he's shot in the head.
Oh my gosh. So what happened with the investigation? Did they find out who did it?
That's the thing. It's all very murky. There were some suspects, including some of Sonia's brothers, but the case just sort of disappeared. Yeah, like people started talking about bribes, saying Sonia paid someone off to make it all go away. Super shady. A lot of unanswered questions.
Wow. So maybe a pattern here. Not only did Sonia benefit financially from both of her husband's deaths, but she might have gotten away with murder twice.
It's a chilling thought.
Right.
Makes you wonder how someone could possibly get away with something like that.
Well, that's what we're here to figure out. We need to take a closer look at Sonia's tactics, the psychology of manipulation, and how things like corruption in the justice system might have played a role.
And we'll talk about what you, the listener, can learn from all this. Because sure, this is about one alleged Black Widow, but it also raises important questions about being careful in relationships and the dangers of money and standing up for justice.
It's a reminder that even the most normal-seeming people can have dark secrets.
Stick with us as we try to untangle this twisted web of deception and see what we can learn from the Lomita Black Widow case. We're back and still trying to untangle this web woven by, allegedly, the Lomita Black Widow, Sonia Rios. Two husbands dead under mysterious circumstances, both in the Philippines, and she's the sole beneficiary of their life insurance.
It's crazy, right?
It really is. Like something out of a movie. But what really gets me is how she did it. How did she allegedly manipulate not one, but two husbands? What kind of tactics did she use?
That's what I keep coming back to. I mean, did Larry and Earl miss something, some huge red flag? Or were they just expertly played? Well, manipulation can be really subtle. It's not always about big lies or dramatic things, right? It's more about slowly breaking someone down. making them feel insecure, isolating them from their friends and family, until they only depend on the manipulator for, well, for everything.
So it's like taking control little by little so they don't even notice it's happened.
Exactly, like the frog in the boiling water. You throw a frog in boiling water, it jumps right out. But if you put it in lukewarm water and slowly heat it up, it won't even realize until it's too late.
Okay, that's a scary thought. But it makes sense. Like with Larry, his sister Sherry tried to warn him, but he didn't listen. That seems to happen a lot, doesn't it?
All the time. Especially when you're in love, you want to believe the best about the person, right? So you explain away their bad behavior, even when everyone else is worried.
Yeah, like you can't see what's right in front of you.
That's why it's so important to have people you trust who can give you that outside perspective. Sometimes they can see things you're missing.
So if someone you trust is worried about your relationship, you should really listen, even if you don't want to hear it.
Absolutely. They might be seeing a pattern you're not, whether it's manipulation or just plain unhealthy behavior.
This case also makes you think about corruption in the justice system. It sounds like Sonia might have found loopholes or even bribed officials to get away with it.
Yeah, it's a disturbing thought, and unfortunately, it's not as uncommon as we'd like to think, especially when you're dealing with international cases. Corruption can look like a lot of different things, right? It can be straight up bribes or evidence tampering, or sometimes it's just the lack of resources to investigate properly.
So not always a big conspiracy, but it still allows people to escape justice.
Exactly. It's like slowly chipping away at accountability until no one is held responsible.
And of course, that's awful for the families, left with so many unanswered questions and no sense of justice.
It's devastating. Adds another layer of trauma on top of everything else. They've already lost someone they love, and then the system fails them too.
So how do we fix it? How do we make sure justice is served in cases like this?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think a big part of it is just raising awareness, shining a light on these issues, and holding people in power accountable.
So it's not just about relying on the authorities. We all have a role to play.
Right. We need to be informed, to ask questions, and to support organizations fighting corruption and advocating for victims.
I think this case is bigger than just one Black Widow. It's about how easily people can be deceived, how our systems can be manipulated, and how important it is to keep fighting for justice, even when it's hard.
It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be vigilant, to educate ourselves, and to stand up for what's right, for ourselves and for each other.
When we come back, I want to talk about what you, our listener, can do. What steps can you take to protect yourself and your loved ones from manipulation? What are the warning signs? And how can you be an advocate for justice in your own community? Stay with us.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive on the Lomita Black Widow. And this time, I want to focus on you, our listener. We've talked about this crazy case, but what can you actually do to protect yourself from this kind of thing?
That's the big question, right? After hearing a story like this, you have to wonder, we've all encountered manipulation at some point, whether it's a pushy salesperson or a controlling friend, or even like those ads online that seem to know exactly what you're thinking.
It's true, it's everywhere. But when it comes to our personal relationships, it feels so much more important to get it right. So what are the red flags? What should we be watching out for?
Well, one of the biggest ones is isolation. If your partner tries to separate you from your friends and family, maybe they make little comments about them or discourage you from seeing them, or even try to start fights between you. So it's not always about being controlling in a really obvious way.
Nope. It's much more subtle than that. It's about slowly weakening those other relationships until you only have them to rely on.
Makes sense. And then there's the money thing, like we saw in the Lomita Black Widow case.
Yeah, financial control is a major red flag. And it can take a lot of different forms. It could be a partner who insists on controlling all the money, or refuses to tell you about their finances, or makes big money decisions without talking to you, or even tries to sabotage your job or keep you from being financially independent.
So it's not just about who makes more, it's about having equal say in what happens to the money, right?
Exactly. It all comes down to transparency and trust. If your partner is hiding things about money or trying to control your finances, that's a huge warning sign.
This one might seem obvious, but I think it's worth repeating. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it.
Couldn't agree more. Your instincts are powerful. If you have that nagging feeling that something's not right, don't brush it off. Talk to someone, get advice, or just take some time to really think about it.
And if you ever feel threatened or unsafe for any reason, please reach out for help. There are hotlines, shelters, support groups. You don't have to go through it alone.
And sometimes leaving that relationship, even though it's hard, is the bravest, best thing you can do. It's about taking back your power,
Yeah.
your self-worth and your safety.
This has been a tough one, but I think the important thing is to remember there's hope. We can learn from these stories, be more aware of the signs, and help each other build healthy, safe relationships.
And we can't give up on fighting for a world where corruption doesn't win and everyone is held accountable, and where victims are heard and believed.
Well, that's it for this deep dive. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it interesting, maybe even helpful.
And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and don't stop questioning.